You ever have one of those times where something's bugging you so much you can't just set it aside for a while? Or you set it aside for a while, but it's still bugging you, so you got to go back to it? Well, that's what's going on with the Ramcharger. The last video you saw on the Ramcharger was when we introduced it and were able to get it to start and turn over. Since then, some things have happened. I'll tell you about it. Sit in here out of the wind a little bit. It's a pretty windy day. Anyway, the Ramcharger here, since the first video we were able to get it to turn over, I actually got it to start and run. And I actually drove it about 40 miles. Drove it into town to get some oil and transmission fluid and stuff like that. And drove it back here. And just as I was getting to the driveway up here to our place, it died. And it wasn't getting fuel again. And I can't figure out why, except when I filled the fuel, I put 5 gallons of fuel in the fuel tank, and it ran on that just fine. But when I put those 5 gallons in, it's like it filled the tank completely. And so I thought, gee, I thought the thing was out of gas. And so drove it on that 5 gallons, it died out of gas again. Filled it again, and it's like it filled up again. So I don't know what's going on there. It could be that the pickup tube inside of the tank is clogging, something like that. Because when I pulled the gas cap off, a bunch of air came out, which tells me pressure's building up in there. So I don't know what's going on. There could be something in the tank that's preventing fuel delivery, proper fuel delivery. Maybe the vent in the gas tank is clogged or something. Maybe the return line that goes from the carburetor and fuel pump, maybe it's clogged. I don't know. When it died down at the end of the driveway, I tried to restart it. And all I got was click, 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 click. That machine gun fire that tells you that there's not enough juice getting to the starter to turn it over. Since then, I've just been piddling around with it when I have a few minutes here, a few minutes there. And I don't have many minutes to play with it. And like I said, this is one of these projects that's kind of on the back burner. But when something like that happens, it just bugs me. And I want to get to the bottom of it. So it's been sitting out here, I don't know, over a month now, waiting for me to see if I could figure this out. So far, I have tested, and just in case, replaced the starter relay. I have tested, and just in case, replaced the starter. And I have cleaned up every ground bus, every ground lug, every place I could see where ground goes into either the frame or the body or the engine. Cleaned those up, made them all nice and shiny so that they would conduct electricity. I've checked the continuity between the battery and the starter, make sure everything's okay. Just done a lot of stuff. I have a jump starter, a 17 amp, 12 volt jump starter for jump starting equipment out here or whatever. And I disconnected the battery cables and I hooked it directly up. I hooked the jump starter directly up, fully charged, by the way, to those battery cables. I still couldn't get the engine to turn over. Still got click, 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 click. So I think the problem must be with one of the cables or their connections to the starter. I can think of nothing else. And looking at the battery cable and its connection, I don't know. Over the years, it's just been sort of jerry-rigged. And so we're going to replace the battery cables. One that goes to the ground lug on the engine and a big one that goes to the starter. And see if we can get it to turn over, because like I said, those battery cables and their connections, they don't look so hot. Oh, I wanted to share what I've done here. When we got this, I noticed that they had installed this aftermarket carburetor on here, but they really didn't have the linkage hooked up very well. It was just sort of messy and loosey-goosey. It still looks kind of messy, but believe me, it's a lot cleaner than it was. And part of the problem was when I first started getting it to move, I realized that the transmission was slipping. And I noticed that when they installed this carburetor, there's an adapter, a special adapter for this engine that is supposed to hook up to it that they didn't have here. And it's this bronze piece you see here, this really bright bronze piece right here. It's specially made to hook up the vacuum line, which I still have unhooked at the moment, and also the transmission kickdown, this right here. Now, a transmission kickdown hooks to the carburetor so that when you hit the gas, it sends a message to a valve back on the transmission that says, kick it down into low gear so you can go into passing gear, speed up, or something like that. And so I installed this so that it would operate correctly because the transmission was slipping. And in driving it, I can see that it's still slipping. It's hesitant to run down into passing gear, and it's hesitant to go into third gear. Just sort of wavers in and out of third gear. And so I think I still have some adjustment to do here, but I think that's the problem, is just they didn't have the right adapter hooked up here. So we got that fixed, and we got a proper return spring on there. And so we've sort of done this, and that has helped things quite a bit with acceleration and getting the transmission to operate properly, stuff like that. So I just thought I'd show that to you. But yeah, here's the negative. Here's the negative terminal. And they have one of these old-fashioned things that you clamp your wire into, and they're garbage. They really are. They don't make a good connection. I tried to make a temporary fix for this by adding some fresh connections and getting it down to bare wire. Where I've attached it temporarily to a ground on the frame there and stuff like that. But we've got to do this right. And so time to replace this. That's the negative. Here's the positive. And here's the battery cable that goes to the alternator. But here is the battery cable right here that goes to the starter. And I don't know, it's a small cable for one. For another, you can tell if you look close, you can tell there's some corrosion there on the wiring. These things, and as I said, these connections, they're terrible, these battery lugs. So we're going to get this fixed up right and see if we can get this thing to turn over. I think we found the problem. This is the negative cable that runs from the battery to the ground bus back by the starter. And it looks like we have a number 2 battery cable that is somehow scabbed onto a number 4 battery cable, and I did that earlier, not realizing what we had here. But yeah, it looks like this was the problem. Replace the cable. Let's see if it starts. I can hear it buzzing. Let's see. If this is straight here, while I try to start it. I pulled the plugs and stuck some Marvel mystery oil down in the cylinders just in case it might be the engine that was locked up and causing this. But let's see if we can at least get this to turn over. Disconnect that, but it did turn over. Okay, good. Put the spark plugs back in. Actually, I got some new spark plugs. I'll throw those in, tighten up this alternator belt here, tighten up the alternator, and see if I can get this thing turned over, then find out why it's not delivering fuel. As I was looking at the spark plugs, I was pulling them out. I'll show these to you. These, first of all, they're the correct plug, which is good, given all the other issues I've seen so far on this vehicle with maintenance. I'm glad to see they at least got the right plugs. But the nice and tan, looks like an even burn so far on all cylinders. Okay. Try to start it. Keep turning over. Look at it. Stop. Good. It's delivering fuel again. Well, it's running again. It's a little rough. It sounds like we may have an exhaust leak back here. Go ahead and push that choke all the way in. Well, at least I got to start again. Okay, so we're running. It's still running a little rough. There's some kind of vacuum leak or something that I cannot find. If I spray some stuff around the carburetor and vacuum lines, it'll straighten up, but I still can't find where it is. So it's running a little rough, but it seems to be running okay. I'm gonna run it into town real quick, gas up, a little gas, put a little more fuel in it, and see if my little adjustment on the kickdown for the transmission, for the carburetor, has fixed itself. Last time I drove it, I put some transmission additive into it also, like liquid clutches or whatever they call it, but it's been sitting a long time. So maybe just driving it, things may fix themselves a little bit. I don't know. I'm gonna get it out here on the highway and see if I can get it down into passing here, see if I can keep it from wavering between second and third like it was doing before. If I can, that's good news. I don't have to do any work to the transmission. So if I do have to do any work to the transmission, and I'll pull the pan and check the fluid and check the bottom of the pan just to make sure that we don't have a problem with burning or anything like that. But if there's no sign of transmission burning from slipping or anything like that, then it may just be either replacing or servicing the valve body on it so that it shifts properly. That's not as bad as pulling the whole transmission, so that's a good thing. We're just taking it easy, rolling down the road. This thing is such a rattle trap that any kind of bump, it just the noises in here or something else. I don't know if they come through on the camera, but it's loud in here, rattling. Everything's rattling. Lots of fun. Okay, so last time I drove this, I could not get it to go into third. It kept wavering in between second and third. It wouldn't fully go in until it reached something like, 55 miles an hour. And I thought, well, that's either a really tall second gear or we got a problem. I just took off from a dead stop here on this little stretch of road, and it seemed to behave a little better. Let's try it again. Nice paved surface here. It's a little smoother and I can hear the engine running without all the rattling. All right, let's try it. See what we get. So it kicked into third gear at about 40 miles an hour. Top speed I've had on this thing so far is about 65. Drives like a truck. Okay, so I don't know, jury's still out on the transmission. I guess I'll just try to drive it a little bit now and again. See how it behaves, see if it straightens itself up. If not, it might be just a case where we have to replace the valve body, which is right above the transmission fluid pan. You just drop the pan, unbolt the body, pull it out, service it, put a new one in, or put that service in, put it back in. I don't know. Maybe it needs what they call a shift kit, which has some different size little parts and stuff that go inside the valve body. I don't know, but we'll just keep playing with this thing and see what we get. I'm not going to do a whole lot with it right now because I have a house to build, but this idea that it wouldn't start was really bothering me. So I decided to take the afternoon and see if I can get this thing running again. If nothing else, it's nice to know that you have an extra vehicle that can start and run in case you need it in a pinch. So anyway, we'll just keep bouncing along these roads out here and see how it goes. There's plenty of projects to do in Kentucky. I'm just glad that for what we paid for this, which was almost nothing, that we've got a vehicle. I think, you know, I put a total of $100 in it. I got a running vehicle. So, I mean, my cost of this thing is almost nothing for a four-wheel drive with the four-wheel drive that works. So, anyway, thank you.